The Red Keep was quieter than usual. The war was over, dragons were gone, and the throne room stood empty. The Iron Throne melted into nothing but a memory. But silence in King's Landing never lasted long. Deep inside the old castle, 3 of the realm's most dangerous minds sat at a round table. Cersei Lannister, Petyr Baelish, known to many as Littlefinger, and Lord Varys, the Spider. It was strange seeing them all together. Once each had their own plan, their own goals, and their own betrayals. But now, a new power vacuum had opened. No king ruled. No council held order. And these 3, once enemies, liars, and schemers, now faced each other with masks off. Cersei was not the queen anymore, but she was alive, a miracle in itself. She wore black now, her golden hair cut short, and her eyes burned with revenge. Littlefinger had escaped death in the Vale, faked it as he always did, and returned to the capital with new tricks. And Varys, the man who served the realm, or at least claimed to, had returned from exile, quiet but very much alive. "So," said Cersei coldly, swirling her wine. "Who do we kill first?" Littlefinger smiled. "No need to kill ... yet. First we control, influence, own the players before we flip the board." Varys raised an eyebrow. "You always think you're playing a game of pieces, Petyr, but this board is broken. Burned, cracked by dragons. We need a new one." Cersei laughed bitterly. "Then build one, but make sure I sit on its throne." They had different reasons for being there. Cersei wanted revenge. Littlefinger wanted power. Varys, perhaps the only one with a soft spot for the common folk, wanted peace, but on his terms. So they made a deal, uneasy, untrusting, but clever. They would share power, just long enough to take it back from the fools who thought the realm could run without them. A new council was forming in King's Landing, filled with young lords and foreign ideas. That council would soon learn what it meant to play against the true masters of the game. Their first target was Lady Alyra of Dorne, one of the new council members. Young, proud, and idealistic, exactly the kind of person Cersei despised. "She thinks kindness builds kingdoms," Cersei mocked. "Let's show her what fear builds." Varys was more strategic. "We turn her own people against her. Dorne has always been proud. Let's whisper that she listens to outsiders more than her own," Littlefinger added, "and maybe someone close to her dies. Just enough pain to make her doubt everyone." And so it began. A whisper in the market. A dead servant in her halls. A forged letter with foreign words. Lady Alyra found herself surrounded by suspicion. Her people began to question her rule. Her allies grew silent. All the while, Cersei, Varys, and Littlefinger met in secret. Their game wasn't just about winning. It was about making the realm theirs again. Slowly, quietly, one piece at a time. But even among themselves, trust was poison. Each of them kept secrets. Each of them had a knife ready, hidden but never forgotten. And though they sat together now, they all wondered, who would betray first? King's Landing, once burned by fire and broken by war, was breathing again. But it was not peace. It was plotting. A new war had begun. Not of armies, but of whispers, lies, and shadows. And the real game, the last game, had just started. In the heart of the capital, shadows began to move again. King's Landing hadn't felt this alive or this dangerous in years. And at the center of it all, 3 puppeteers pulled strings behind curtains of velvet and blood. Lady Alyra of Dorne was only the beginning. News of her political weakness spread like wildfire. Her guards whispered she might flee the capital. One of her closest advisors vanished without a trace. Rumors swirled that he had been poisoned. In truth, Littlefinger had paid him well, then paid someone else to make sure he was never found again. Cersei watched it all with cruel satisfaction. The girl wanted to change the world, she smirked, sipping her wine. but the world changed her first. But their alliance was showing cracks already. Littlefinger was growing bolder, and Varys noticed. "You enjoyed that too much," Varys said to him one night, as they stood on the balcony of Maegor's Holdfast. "You're not just playing the game. You're feeding on it." Littlefinger's smile was slow and poisonous. "I feed on opportunity, Lord Varys. The difference is, I admit it, Cersei didn't care for either of their philosophies. She had a new target, Sir Jorlan Val, commander of the City Watch, loyal to no one but the people. He refused to bow to fear or gold. That made him a problem." "We need the City Watch," Cersei said sharply. "They control the gates, the streets, the peace. Without them, we rule nothing but empty halls." Varys warned her. "He's not like the others. He's respected. If he dies too soon, people will riot, so we don't kill him," said Littlefinger, eyes gleaming. "We make him look like a traitor." And so, another play began. A caravan filled with stolen weapons from the Reach was discovered inside the city. A witness was found who swore he saw Sir Jorlan's men escorted in. A secret ledger was leaked showing payments from an enemy house. By the end of the week, the people were whispering that their beloved commander might be plotting a coup. But Jorlan wasn't a fool. He came straight to the Red Keep, demanding a hearing. Cersei met him alone in the throne room, sitting where the Iron Throne once stood. "You think you're clever," he said bitterly. "But I know how this city works. And I know you're kind." Cersei smiled. "Then you should know what happens to those who fight the tide." He drew his sword, not to strike, but to lay it down. "I'm stepping down," he said. "But if you think the people will forget, you're wrong." She let him walk, for now. Outside the walls of the city, whispers were reaching the ears of someone even the trio hadn't considered. Arya Stark returned from her voyages, cloaked in silence, watching from the shadows. She had no love for Cersei, no patience for men like Baelish, and even less trust for Varys. She wasn't here to save the realm. She was here to finish a list, and 3 names just reappeared on it. Back in the Red Keep, tensions were rising. Varys found a message slipped under his door, unsigned but clear. "She's watching. One wolf survives." He turned pale. "Arya," he whispered. Littlefinger received no such warning, but he began to see the signs. A servant missing here, a closed door there, a familiar face in a crowd that vanished the next moment. Even Cersei, sharp and paranoid, noticed her wine had a strange taste one evening. She didn't drink it. They had played the game too well, and now the game was playing them back. In their thirst for power, they forgot one rule. Some people don't play. Some people kill. The wind in King's Landing carried a different weight now. It wasn't just whispers anymore. It was tension. People walked faster, looked over their shoulders. Merchants closed early. The smell of ash had long faded, but fear had returned, quiet and sharp like a knife pressed to the skin. And Arya Stark was the blade behind it. She moved like smoke through the capital, faceless and fearless. She'd watched Cersei from a rooftop as the former queen passed by in her black cloak, still pretending to be untouchable. Arya had almost struck then, but something held her back. Not mercy. No, that wasn't in her anymore. It was strategy. Cersei was surrounded, guarded by more than soldiers. Varys and Littlefinger were always nearby, shadows circling shadows. Arya wasn't here for a single kill. She was here to end the game. Meanwhile, the 3 players tightened their grip on the city. They had no crown, but they ruled in every way that mattered. The small council bent to their words. The lords who remained in the capital either swore loyalty or vanished. Fear was more effective than banners. But they all underestimated Arya. They didn't see her eyes watching from a servant's face. They didn't know the girl who poured Littlefinger's wine used to be no one. And they definitely didn't know that Varys' own little birds had started turning quiet. One by one, either too scared to speak or too dead to deliver messages. Then it happened. Lord Renric Malin, a powerful voice in the council, was found hanging by his own belt in the Tower of the Hand. No signs of struggle. No blood. Just a note pinned to his chest. The game ends. Cersei was the first to panic. This isn't war, she hissed. It's punishment. Someone sending a message. Varys stayed quiet, though his face had gone pale again. He remembered the letter. He remembered Arya's name. Littlefinger, on the other hand, laughed. Let them try. Let her try. I've cheated death more times than I've cheated kings. But bravado only lasted so long. That night, Littlefinger entered his private chamber and found a candle burning, though no one had lit it. On the table, a familiar brooch lay, one he'd given to a servant girl he had used and discarded years ago. She had been from the north. He backed out of the room slowly, heart pounding. For once, the great manipulator didn't know what to do. Elsewhere, Varys summoned his spies. But his birds were silent. His web, once the greatest source of secrets in Westeros, was unraveling. He finally confessed to Cersei. She's here. Cersei's eyes narrowed. Then kill her. Try, Varys said quietly. She's not a girl anymore. She's a ghost with a blade. But Cersei didn't believe in ghosts. She believed in power. And she believed it was slipping. The three of them were no longer hunters. They were being hunted. They gathered in the crypts beneath the Red Keep, the one place they thought even Arya Stark wouldn't dare enter. She wants us afraid, Littlefinger said, pacing like a trapped fox. But we can use that. We draw her out. We feed her a lie. Cersei's eyes gleamed with cold hatred. What lie? That one of us is ready to betray the others. Varys hesitated. Which one? Littlefinger's smile returned, slow, sharp, and slippery. Me. Cersei raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. The trap was set. They spread whispers. Littlefinger was losing faith. He'd grown tired of sharing power. He wanted out. He was ready to flee the city, and in doing so, he would expose the others. The rumor was bait, and Arya was listening. That night, she followed Littlefinger through the winding streets of King's Landing. He rode alone, under a moonless sky, toward the old Baelish brothel near Flea Bottom. She stayed close, silent, ready, but she didn't know that Varys was watching her from a rooftop, or that Cersei had stationed crossbowmen in the shadows. And as Arya crept closer, she stepped into a trap far more clever than even she had expected. The game had turned again, and this time she might be the piece that gets taken. The air near Flea Bottom was thick, with smoke, sweat, and betrayal. Arya stalked through the shadows, her steps silent, her breath calm. She'd followed Littlefinger before, and every time it led her to someone's ruin. This time would be no different. Or so she thought. She crouched behind an old barrel near the brothel's entrance, eyes fixed on Littlefinger's back as he slipped inside. No guards, no noise. Just flickering candlelight behind a cracked window. Too easy, too quiet. She waited. 5 minutes passed, 10. Then she moved. Fast, silent, knife in hand, heart steady. The door creaked open with a single push. Inside, the room was empty, except for a single chair facing the hearth. A hooded figure sat there, back to her, unmoving. Arya didn't speak. She moved like the wind, blade to throat in one breath. Only it wasn't Littlefinger. It was a corpse. A servant boy, freshly killed, dressed in Littlefinger's cloak. Arya's eyes widened, and then the room exploded in motion. Doors slammed, torches flared. Dozens of footsteps thundered on the wooden floor above and below. Cersei's men poured in, weapons drawn. She had been trapped. But Arya Stark was no stranger to death. She became it. She danced through the brothel like a ghost of war, slicing, dodging, disappearing. Blood splashed the walls. Screams echoed into the alleys. Her blade kissed 10 throats before they could even aim. Still, they were too many. She was cornered in the basement, a dozen soldiers blocking the stairs. And then from the back wall, a whisper. Here. Varys. He pulled her through a hidden passage as arrows rained into the stone. He didn't wait for thanks. He simply whispered, "You'll die if you fight them head on. I didn't save you. I saved the realm." Arya said nothing, but the way she looked at him chilled even the spider's bones. Back in the Red Keep, Cersei seethed. She escaped? "She nearly killed everyone," the soldier panted, blood on his armor. Cersei's rage turned inward. "Then next time, send better men." Littlefinger, leaning casually near the fireplace, raised a mocking brow. "She's better than all your men combined. I told you she wouldn't fall for a simple trap." Varys entered then, calm as ever, though his sleeve was torn. "She now knows we see her," he said flatly, "which means we'll either drive her away or make her desperate." But Arya wasn't running. She had learned something that night, something deeper than her enemy's plans. She had seen fear in their eyes. Even Cersei's. That meant they weren't gods. They weren't invincible. They were paranoid, divided, and worst of all, vulnerable. The next day, the city found another body. This time, it was Maester Tolric, the council's newest member and Varys' personal informant. He was hung upside down from the gates of the Red Keep. Pinned to his chest, in his own blood, were the words, "Spiders weave lies. Wolves bite throats." Cersei ordered the body burned. Varys said nothing. Littlefinger smirked. She's playing her own game now. But what none of them realized was that Arya wasn't just targeting them anymore. She had found something else. In the ruins beneath the keep, she uncovered secrets older than the throne itself. Old Targaryen vaults filled with forbidden histories, letters, and blood-stained pages. One scroll changed everything. It spoke of a pact, years ago, between Baelish, Varys, and Rhaegar Targaryen. A pact that involved Jon Snow. Arya read it twice, then burned it. Now she had 2 lists. One was for revenge. The other was for justice. And for that, she'd need something bigger than blades. She'd need chaos. And chaos was something Littlefinger knew all too well. Chaos had always been Littlefinger's favorite weapon. But now, someone else was playing with it better than him. And that someone had no name. Arya Stark had vanished again. The city searched, the guards doubled, the sewers combed. Nothing. It was like chasing fog. But the effects of her presence still echoed in every corner of King's Landing. Servants refused to work at night. Nobles slept with daggers under their pillows. Whispers spread that the faceless girl was a demon sent by the old gods. And still, Cersei, Varys, and Littlefinger clung to power, for now. But trust, already thin between them, began to rot. "She saved you," Cersei said coldly, glaring at Varys, "in that brothel. Don't insult me with excuses." "I didn't ask for her help," Varys replied, his voice calm, but his eyes heavy with calculation. "I simply saw a bigger threat than her blade." Littlefinger, always amused by the tension, leaned in. "The real question isn't why she spared him. It's, what does she know now?" Cersei narrowed her eyes. "She's digging. She's always digging," said Varys. "That's what wolves do. And eventually, they find the grave." Cersei didn't like riddles. She liked heads on spikes. "She wants us scared," she said. "Let's show her fear." They ordered new executions. Public. Bloody. Suspected spies. Thieves. Even a child accused of whispering northern songs. Heads rolled. The city grew quiet again, but not with peace. With dread. Yet Arya still didn't strike, because she was waiting. Waiting for them to break each other. And cracks were forming fast. That night, Varys sent a raven to someone in the far north. A message written in his own hand, sealed with no sigil. It read, "She's alive. She fights alone. But the game is not yet lost. Come." He didn't sign his name. He didn't have to. Meanwhile, Arya moved like a ghost through the ruins of the dragon pit. There, hidden beneath stone and ash, she found an old Valyrian blade, once owned by a Targaryen prince. It had no name now. Just like her. It fit her hand like it was forged for her. But even as she sharpened her new weapon, her plan was no longer about simple revenge. The scroll she'd burned haunted her, the one that revealed a secret pact. It spoke of Jon Snow, of a time before the war when Rhaegar Targaryen offered sanctuary to a bastard boy in case the war turned against him. The pact was made with Varys and Baelish. If Jon survived, he was to be protected, used, but something changed. They betrayed that pact. They let Jon face betrayal, war, and death while they twisted the realm into their image. Arya realized that all of Jon's suffering, the exile, the war, the isolation, was a price paid so they could play their game. That made it personal. So she decided she wouldn't just kill them. She would expose them. In front of the people, break their names, shatter their legacy. Then, when the city saw their gods bleed, she'd let the blade do its final work. But she needed one last ally. Someone who had reason to hate them even more. Someone no one would expect. She found her in the shadows of the Great Sept, now a burnt-out skeleton of stone. Sansa Stark. Dressed in rags, hidden as a commoner, the Lady of Winterfell had returned to the capital with no banner, no guard. Just fury. Arya approached her silently, stepping from the smoke like a memory. Sansa didn't flinch. "I wondered when you'd come," she said. "I need your help," Arya said. "To finish them." Sansa's eyes were colder than the snow they were named for. "Only if I can destroy Littlefinger myself." Arya nodded once. "Then it's time." And just like that, two wolves stood where once three liars ruled. The hunters were now the hunted. And the blood would not stop flowing until the game ended. For good, the Red Keep stood tall, but it had never felt so vulnerable. Its walls echoed not with power, but with paranoia. Its halls, once loud with pride and ambition, now whispered only fear. Something ancient and dangerous had returned to King's Landing, not a beast, not a war, but vengeance. Cersei drank more. She rarely slept. Her guards never left her side. She'd ordered all tunnels under the castle sealed, doubled the gold cloaks, even replaced her food tasters twice. But no walls, no guards, no precautions could protect her from what she couldn't see. And right now, she couldn't see the end coming, because it wasn't just Arya anymore. Sansa was here. The girl Cersei, once called a little bird, had flown back into her cage. Except now, the bird had claws. She and Arya worked in silence, like ghosts in the snow. They didn't trust anyone but each other. They knew that the only way to end this game was not just by blood, but by proof. So they gave the city something to listen to. It started with whispers, quiet at first, from servants, street singers, dying mesters. Stories about the pact, about how Baelish and Varys had conspired with the Targaryen prince to control the line of succession. About how Jon Snow had been betrayed not just by Daenerys, but by the very men who claimed to serve the realm. They gave the city a villain. Then they gave it a reason to hate him. A parchment was nailed to the gates of the Red Keep in full view of the people, a copy of the original pact, signed with Littlefinger's name. Beside it, another letter, forged in the old style of Varys, confirming that Jon Snow's return to the Wall was arranged, not commanded. The realm erupted in anger. "Lies," Varys hissed, tossing the parchment into the fire. Cersei wasn't so sure. Who else could have known? Who had access to those vaults? Littlefinger stared at the wall in silence. He remembered now the girl in the brothel who never spoke, the servant with the northern eyes, the whisper in the alley. "They're not killing us," he said at last. "They're unmaking us." Cersei turned to him, voice sharp. "Then stop them. I don't care how. Kill them, or I'll kill you." But Littlefinger wasn't afraid of Cersei. Not anymore. He knew something had shifted, something he could no longer control. Varys, watching from the corner, finally spoke. "We have one move left. One chance to turn this." Cersei raised an eyebrow. "What?" "We kill the wolf the people still love." Cersei's eyes flickered. "Jon Snow." "Exactly," Varys said. "He still breathes beyond the wall. Exile or not, people see him as a hero. If Arya and Sansa are fighting for his memory, we erase it. But we don't even know where he is." Littlefinger smiled coldly. "I do." He still had one raven. One last favor from a loyal contact at Castle Black. He had kept it quiet, thinking he might one day use it as leverage. Now it was his only card. That night the raven flew. But what they didn't know was that someone else had sent a raven before them. Sansa had written to Jon herself. Not begging, not warning. Just 5 words. "It's time to come home." And beyond the wall, in the land of endless snow, a man with silver in his beard and ghosts in his eyes stood holding that letter. Jon Snow had stayed in exile, not because he was afraid, but because he was tired. Tired of wars, tired of crowns, tired of death, but not tired of justice. He folded the letter, mounted his horse, and turned south. Meanwhile, back in King's Landing, Arya and Sansa made their final move. They found the last survivor of the old pact, an old mister named Jareth, hidden in a cellar outside the city, blind in one eye, coughing up blood, but still remembering everything. They gave him a platform. He gave them the truth. And the city listened. The spider lied. The finger bled us. The queen ruled in fire and falsehood, he said in front of hundreds. But the North remembers. The word spread like fire on dry wood. The council began to split. And inside the Red Keep, Cersei, Varys, and Littlefinger stood alone, watching the kingdom that once bowed to them now sharpen its knives. Winter arrived in King's Landing, not with snow, but with silence. An unnatural calm wrapped the city like a shroud. The people had stopped fearing Arya. They had started fearing the truth. And that truth was now marching toward them. Jon Snow had crossed the neck. He rode alone at first, but as he passed through every town, every broken holdfast, the small folk gathered behind him. Not for war. They carried no banners, no armor, just belief. Word had spread. The wolves had returned, and they were tearing down the golden lions and silver tongues that had ruled the realm from the shadows for too long. In the Red Keep, the last 3 players sat in a cold chamber lit only by a single flame. Cersei was pacing. Varys was silent. Littlefinger was thinking, too late. "We still have the city watch," Cersei snapped. "We'll cut them down the moment they reach the gate." "No," Varys said, voice low. "We have guards who already believe the rumors. Men who grew up hearing of Jon Snow's name. If we give that order, we risk mutiny." Cersei turned on him like a lioness. "Then let them mutiny. Let them bleed. I will not kneel to ghosts." Littlefinger finally spoke, voice smooth but cold. "You've already kneeled, Cersei. We all have. We just didn't notice." That morning, the gates of King's Landing opened. But no army stormed in. Only one man on horseback, followed by the people who had once feared this city, now come to reclaim it. Jon entered the Red Keep with no weapon drawn. His eyes carried the war he thought he had left behind. But this war wasn't for thrones. It was for truth. In the throne room, now stripped bare, The Iron Throne melted into shadowed memory. Arya and Sansa stood waiting beside the steps. And on those steps stood Cersei, Varys, and Littlefinger, their faces carved with disbelief. "You should be dead," Cersei said through clenched teeth. Jon didn't respond. He just looked at her like she was already buried. Arya stepped forward, her voice low but sharp. "You lied to the realm. Betrayed the pact. Played gods while others bled." Sansa followed. "And now the game ends." Littlefinger tried to salvage it, one last time. "We did what we had to. For stability. For order." Jon finally spoke. "You did it for power." Varys didn't deny it. "And you would do different, Jon Snow. You, who left the realm in ruins with your broken queen." Jon walked closer. "I didn't want power. That's why I still deserve to stand." Cersei laughed bitterly. "What now? Public trials? Poetic speeches?" Arya unsheathed the Valyrian blade she had found in the dragon pit. The crowd outside roared. The Red Keep was surrounded by thousands of eyes, watching history rewrite itself. "No speeches," Arya said. "No trial. No mercy." Jon nodded once. Arya moved like a shadow. Her blade slipped across Varys' throat before he could blink. He dropped to his knees, eyes wide, not in pain, but acceptance. He'd always said he served the realm. And now the realm had judged him. Littlefinger ran. He didn't make it 5 steps. Sansa raised her hand. An arrow fired from the hall, straight into his back. He collapsed with a gurgle, reaching for a dagger that wasn't there. Just like the lies he once held, now vanished. Cersei stood alone, but she didn't beg. She didn't kneel. She only stared at Jon with hatred deeper than the sea. "You think killing us will fix this realm?" She spat. "This kingdom is sick. It always has been. You can't cure rot with a knife." Jon stepped closer. "No, but you can stop it from spreading." She drew a dagger, fast, precise, lunging toward Sansa with a scream. Arya was faster. Her blade slid into Cersei's side, deep and merciless. Cersei stumbled back, collapsing near the place where the Iron Throne once stood. Her final breath echoed through the empty hall, and just like that, the game was over. In the weeks that followed, the city changed. The Red Keep's banners were torn down. No new throne was built. Instead, a council of houses, including the North, the Riverlands, and Dorne, took root. Jon refused the crown. Again, he left quietly one morning, riding back north where peace still had meaning. Sansa returned to Winterfell, a true queen in the north. Arya sailed west again, her blade finally clean. The realm didn't get a happy ending, but it got a chance. And that was enough.